My first Souls game was Bloodborne. Before it, I was never a fan of werewolves, witches, gothic architecture, and Victorian-style horror. Yet this game made me a drooling idiot fanboy over all of these things. This is a game where I came in loving none of the elements it had to offer, and I came out awakened to what I've been missing all this time. So much so, I still use Bloodborne as a comparison piece for games that share its elements. This video will delve into why Bloodborne is my favourite Souls game, but also the impact it continues to have on my daily life and the many games I've played since. If you're not fond of people speaking passionately about a game with a dose of romanticism, and prefer the more professional approach with a critical eye, there are countless brilliant videos out there that should suffice. For the rest of you, welcome aboard, let's begin. As stated in the previous video, I played Bloodborne at a very late stage. It had been sitting in my PS Plus library for years until I finally tried it. And after going through what everyone goes through on their first Souls game, the initiation period as I like to call it, where you play for the first hour thinking, oh god no, this is not for me, I can't play this, so you almost give up. Then something happens to you unconsciously, at least it did for me. I wanted to give up so badly, but I couldn't stop thinking about anything other than Bloodborne, and that need to prove myself. And that's how it gets you. Before you know it, you're hooked, and you have to see it through. Once you begin to turn the tide of being the town's punching bag, that's when you begin to open your eyes to everything around you. And only then do you realize you're not just playing a difficult game and killing bosses, you're experiencing something you've never experienced before. That's what many Souls-like games can't seem to master. You can recreate all the gameplay mechanics and intelligent level design of a Souls game, but that's only half of what each of them offer. Speaking of which, I better quickly tell you which of the games I've played now, so you don't think I'm a hack. After Bloodborne, I played Elden Ring when it came out, then Dark Souls 1 to 3. I've yet to play Sekiro, and Demon Souls. It's funny actually, I thought because I adored Elden Ring and Dark Souls so much, I'd go back and find Bloodborne's impact had diminished as a result. What I didn't expect was the exact opposite. If anything, those games helped me grasp why Bloodborne is so unique. It'd only been 3 years since I last played, yet I was genuinely in awe over its visual style and graphical fidelity. The cutscenes had me glued to the screen, and they linger on just long enough to take in the scene and the subtle storytelling on display. However, graphical fidelity and a unique visual art style are strictly surface level. What about the many layers underneath? You see, much like the gods that have been there throughout the game before you even gain the ability to see them, something else was happening to me other than mere enjoyment, and it's very similar to what happened to me during Dark Souls 1. In the video I made about the game, I talked about a really traumatic experience I had 12 months ago, and how that game was not only like a visual representation of my own trauma, but also had the game help me rationalize and therefore overcome that same trauma. That traumatic experience is something I'll never remember, and despite that, it continues to linger on in the back of my mind, unable to be processed naturally, crippling me in moments of daily life I never expected it to, even today. How does Bloodborne fit into all of this? Well, just like my attitude towards Bloodborne being like, oh, I've seen all there is to see, I can cut through these enemies and bosses with ease. The same thing was happening to me in real life. I had long sealed the box of memories containing all that has happened to me in the past year, now that I've almost recovered physically. I was so done with that whole chapter in my life. Since Bloodborne is a game of offense, I met the overwhelming aggression of enemies with even more aggression, a mirror into my real life, meeting all those challenges with that same hostility. But although a lack of fear gives a person the power needed to beat enormous obstacles, it seemingly only succeeds in distracting you from the real battle. This is when I realized that Bloodborne has so much more to offer to me now than it did back then, if that's even fathomable. It forced me to reflect on what's actually going on in my own mind, rather than pretend regaining physical superiority solved all my issues. Time to back it up. That's one of the many beauties of the horror genre. It puts viewers and players in extremely uncomfortable situations, and oftentimes it forces us to face things about ourselves that we refuse to acknowledge in our daily lives, and that's where the real fear comes from. And depending on how you play your cards, you can use that fear to better yourself or retreat into a safe bubble worse than you were before. I'm not going to pretend I'm some kind of clinical psychologist or an expert on post-traumatic stress. My knowledge on these two fields is at a basic level. But trauma is not a one-time boss battle, or a series of boss battles building towards a goal of complete annihilation. It is an invisible enemy that couldn't care less what you do, or how tough you claim to be, and it will infect every corner of your mind should you let it. Rationalizing that unfortunate truth is half the battle. It's only with a game like Bloodborne or Dark Souls could I have come to that conclusion. Had I accumulated a library of games based solely on blockbuster like escapist fantasy, I'd only stamp for personal growth. Not to diss escapist games though, there's a place for both. Sometimes you just want to have fun with a game, and if you're like me, other times you want to be challenged both gameplay wise and mentally. Before, Bloodborne reminded me about the thrill of challenge and high difficulty, like in the good old PlayStation 1 days. I realise now that I was getting way too comfortable with convenience. Generous checkpoints, regenerating health, endless map markers, and excess exposition. I recently played through Spider-Man 2, and I'm now currently playing through Metal Gear Solid 2. Coincidentally, they're both set in New York. For both games, I cranked up the difficulty tenfold, thanks to Bloodborne, and I'm having an absolute blast, especially with MGS2, as that is a difficult and punishing game even on normal. Bloodborne's impact on me stretches beyond my mental health and trauma. It has influenced how I play modern games. It has influenced my love of art, of discovery, of human psychology, of Lovecraftian horror, of musical storytelling, and the sense of fulfillment that only a game can provide. It does all that, whilst also having the only quality most gamers care about. It's fun. How could it not be my favourite Souls game, when it has quite evidently changed my life, once when I first discovered it, and now when I needed it most?